What I'm about to tell you might completely change how you see your own survival story. If you've ever felt broken after dealing with a narcissist, stay with me, because what you think is your weakness might actually be your greatest strength. Today, we're diving deep into Carl Jung's revolutionary discoveries about what happens when empaths not only survive narcissistic abuse, but transform through it into something extraordinary. Carl Jung discovered something remarkable about people like you, something that mainstream psychology still struggles to understand. He said that some of us are chosen by our unconscious mind to carry the emotional baggage that others refuse to face. If you're an empath, you didn't choose this role, it chose you from the moment you took your first breath. But here's what most people don't understand about empaths, and what Carl Jung knew that will blow your mind. Jung spent decades studying what he called the sensitive ones. Individuals whose nervous systems seemed hardwired to absorb the emotional frequencies of everyone around them. He discovered that empaths often grow up in homes where emotional chaos reigns supreme, where they had to become emotional detectives just to survive childhood. As children, you learned to read the room before you could even read books. You developed an internal radar system that could detect your mother's depression from 3 rooms away, sense your father's anger before he even knew he was angry, and feel the family's unspoken secrets vibrating in your bones. You became a living, breathing emotional barometer for your entire household. This wasn't your choice. This wasn't your fault. This was your nervous system's adaptation to an environment where emotional survival required hypervigilance. Jung called this, the wounded child's gift, a heightened sensitivity that emerges from the necessity to navigate emotional landmines. And this is exactly why narcissists are drawn to you like moths to a flame. But what happens next is where Jung's most shocking discovery comes in. Carl Jung made a disturbing discovery about the relationship between empaths and narcissists. It's not random. It's not bad luck. It's an archetypal attraction that operates at the deepest levels of the unconscious mind. Jung said that narcissists are people who've completely rejected their dark side, what he called the shadow self. They've constructed elaborate false personas to hide from their own shame, vulnerability, and emotional wounds. But here's the kicker, they can't actually destroy these rejected parts of themselves. They can only project them onto others. And guess who becomes their favorite projection screen? You. The empath and the narcissist create what Jung called an archetypal dance of complementarity. Your natural empathic absorption meets their desperate need to offload emotional toxicity. It's like watching a person dying of thirst meet someone whose well overflows, except in this case, the well isn't filled with water, but with emotional poison. But here's the part that will shock you, this toxic relationship isn't random. Jung discovered there's a deeper purpose behind your suffering, and when you understand it, everything changes. Jung believed that the unconscious mind orchestrates these encounters for a reason. The narcissist appears in your life not as punishment, but as what he called, the catalyst for individuation, the dark teacher who forces you into the depths of your own psyche where your true power lies dormant. When you're with a narcissist, something terrible and transformative happens simultaneously. You start to absorb their rejected emotions like a psychic sponge. Their guilt becomes your guilt. Their shame becomes your shame. Their suppressed rage plants itself in your chest like a foreign seed that grows in the darkness. Carl Jung called this process psychological poisoning or psychic contamination. You literally take in emotional toxins that were never yours to begin with. The narcissist's inability to face their own darkness gets transferred directly into your energy field, where your empathic nature processes it as if it were your own emotional reality. You might think this is where your story ends, broken and poisoned. But Jung discovered something incredible about what happens to people who survive this kind of psychological warfare. This absorption process can feel like you're dying from the inside out. You lose yourself in their hall of mirrors. You question your sanity daily. You live in a psychological prison where the narcissist's version of reality becomes the only truth you're allowed to believe. You start to think their thoughts, feel their feelings, and even doubt your own memories and perceptions. But according to Carl Jung, this breaking point isn't your destruction. It's your transformation beginning. He called it, the dark night of the soul, a necessary descent into psychological hell that precedes spiritual rebirth. Jung found that people who go through this kind of psychological hell don't just survive, they become something entirely new. And what they become will amaze you. Carl Jung was fascinated by ancient alchemy, the medieval practice of attempting to turn base metals like lead into gold. But Jung understood something that most people missed: alchemy was never really about metals. It was a symbolic representation of psychological transformation. Jung discovered that the human psyche follows the same alchemical process. Your suffering isn't meaningless, it's the raw material for your metamorphosis. The narcissist's psychological poison becomes the very substance that, when properly processed through conscious awareness, transforms you into psychological gold. The alchemical stages Jung identified mirror perfectly what happens to empaths surviving narcissistic abuse. Nigredo, the blackening, this is the initial stage where everything falls apart. You feel poisoned, confused, lost. Your old identity dissolves. You can't tell where you end and the narcissist begins. Albedo, the whitening, this is where you begin to separate what's yours from what's theirs. You start to see the truth of what happened. The fog begins to clear. Rubedo, the reddening, this is the final stage, integration and rebirth. You emerge not as the same person who entered the relationship, but as someone entirely transformed. But here's the part nobody talks about: what you become after this transformation might actually scare some people. And that's exactly the point. Jung said that when empaths complete this alchemical journey, they don't just heal from trauma, they develop what he called superior function. You become psychologically superior to your former self and, in many ways, superior to those who've never been tested by such fire. According to Carl Jung, there's an archetype that emerges from this transformation: the wounded healer. This is someone who gains supernatural-like healing abilities through their own wounds. When you survive a narcissist, you don't just heal yourself. You develop powers that seem almost mystical to others. These abilities are so powerful that Jung said they can actually threaten people who are still living in illusion. Let me explain what I mean. You develop what I call shadow vision, the ability to see through people's masks instantly. You can detect manipulation before it even forms in someone's mind. You can sense fake love, false promises, and hidden agendas from across the room. This isn't paranoia, this is awakened perception. Carl Jung discovered that people who've survived psychological poisoning become living lie detectors. Their empathy doesn't disappear, it evolves into something much more sophisticated: discernment. You can still feel everything, but now you can also see through everything. You develop an ability to read microexpressions, to hear the unspoken words behind people's sentences, to feel the emotional undercurrents that others miss entirely. You become a walking truth-sensing device, and this makes some people very uncomfortable. But there's a dangerous trap waiting for survivors, and if you fall into it, all your growth can be lost. Jung warned about this, and I need to tell you what it is. After surviving a narcissist, many people make a critical mistake that Jung warned about extensively. They think the solution is to never feel again, never trust again, never love again. They build walls so high that nothing can hurt them, but nothing can reach them either. They turn their heart to stone and call it strength. Carl Jung said this is just another form of self-protection that becomes its own prison. It's what he called the shadow of healing, when your medicine becomes your poison. True healing isn't becoming emotionally dead, it's becoming emotionally intelligent. Jung observed that some abuse survivors become so focused on avoiding future hurt that they cut themselves off from all authentic connection. They mistake isolation for independence, cynicism for wisdom, and emotional numbing for strength. They survive the narcissist only to become a different kind of imprisoned, trapped in their own fortress of self-protection. The real transformation Jung discovered is much more paradoxical, and when you understand it, you'll never see yourself the same way again. Here's what Carl Jung found most remarkable about authentic healing: after surviving psychological abuse, truly transformed empaths become both softer and harder at the same time. Your heart grows bigger, but it also grows sharper. Your love deepens, but your boundaries strengthen. You can still love deeply, but you no longer confuse love with self-sacrifice. You can still feel everything, but you don't let those feelings destroy you. You can still give generously, but you don't disappear in the process of giving. You can still trust, but you trust wisely rather than blindly. Jung called this, the union of opposites or, the transcendent function, being tender and fierce simultaneously, open and boundaried at once, trusting and wise in the same moment. This isn't a contradiction, it's integration. Most people live in either or consciousness, either strong or sensitive, either trusting or cautious, either giving or protecting. But transformed empaths learn to hold both in consciousness, both strong and sensitive, both trusting and wise, both generous and boundaried. But perhaps the most incredible thing Jung discovered about empath transformation is how it affects everyone around you. And this might explain why some people seem uncomfortable in your presence now. Carl Jung said that when empaths complete their transformation, they become like phoenixes, mythical beings reborn from their own ashes. But unlike the mythical bird, your rebirth serves a purpose far greater than personal survival. Your transformation becomes a beacon of possibility for others. Your very presence becomes a mirror that shows others what's possible beyond their current limitations. Without saying a word, without preaching or teaching, you demonstrate through your being that survival and transformation are real. You become living proof that the human spirit cannot be destroyed. Some people find this inspiring and are drawn to your light like plants reaching toward the sun. But others find it threatening because your transformation highlights their own stagnation. Your growth reminds them of their own unlived potential, and this can trigger their deepest fears and resistances. Jung discovered that transformed empaths carry a special kind of light, not the naive glow of innocence, but something much more powerful. And this light has an unusual effect on people. According to Carl Jung, people who've integrated their shadow, who've faced their dark side and survived, emit a different kind of energy than they did before their transformation. It's not the soft, diffused light of innocence that can be easily absorbed or manipulated. It's the sharp, clear light of consciousness that reveals truth wherever it shines. Your presence now unconsciously demands authenticity from others. People who want to stay asleep in their illusions, who prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths, might feel agitated or resistant in your presence. But those who long for genuine connection and authentic living will be drawn to you like iron filings to a magnet. This isn't something you do consciously or deliberately. It's something you become through your journey of death and rebirth. Jung called this, the charisma of the individuated person, a natural magnetism that comes from being authentically yourself rather than performing a role. But Jung made another discovery that might surprise you about the real purpose behind your suffering. And when you understand this, you'll never see your past the same way. Carl Jung believed profoundly that the unconscious mind has its own intelligence, its own mysterious agenda for our growth and development. According to Jung, your encounter with the narcissist wasn't random bad luck, cosmic punishment, or evidence that you attract toxic people. It was your psyche's way of forcing you into the depths where your authentic power lives. The narcissist served as what Jung called a catalyst for individualization, an unwitting agent of your soul's development. Their darkness forced you into the underworld of your own psyche, where you discovered strengths you never knew you had and developed capacities that remain dormant in people who've never been tested by such fire. Jung suggested that on some level, your higher self actually orchestrated this encounter because it knew you needed to be broken open in order to become whole. This doesn't mean the abuse was okay, deserved, or divinely ordained, but it does mean that your soul knew how to transform poison into medicine. This doesn't mean the abuse was justified, but Jung found that understanding its hidden purpose can completely transform how survivors see themselves. And this shift in perspective changes everything. Jung said that the moment you understand that your suffering served your soul's growth, you stop being defined by what happened to you and start being defined by what you became through it. This is perhaps the most crucial shift in the entire healing journey. You're no longer just a survivor clinging to the wreckage of your former life, you're an initiate who has passed through trials that strip away illusions and reveal truth. You've undergone what Jung called a psychological initiation that most people will never experience. What remains isn't less than what you were before, it's infinitely more. This shift from victim consciousness to initiate consciousness changes everything. Victims are defined by their wounds. Initiates are defined by their wisdom. Victims ask, "Why did this happen to me?" Initiates ask, "What did this teach me?" Victims remain trapped in the past. Initiates use the past as fuel for their future. But Jung warned about one final challenge that transformed Empath's face, and if you don't handle it correctly, you could lose everything you've gained. Carl Jung discovered that it's not enough to survive the narcissist outside, you must also face the narcissist within. This is perhaps the most challenging part of the entire journey, and Jung considered it absolutely essential for complete healing. Each of us carries the potential for narcissism in our own shadow. There's a part of you that wants to be worshipped rather than loved, that seeks control rather than connection, that prefers admiration to authenticity. There's a part of you that would rather be right than be in relationship, that would choose being special over being human. If you don't acknowledge and integrate this inner narcissist, this part that fears vulnerability, that wants to be above others rather than among them, that seeks to dominate rather than collaborate, you risk becoming what you once despised. Jung saw many abuse survivors become so focused on never being victimized again that they swung to the opposite extreme and became perpetrators themselves. Jung said true freedom isn't the absence of outer oppressors but the mastery of inner forces. You must befriend your own capacity for selfishness, manipulation, and control so that you can choose love and authenticity from a place of power rather than weakness. When you face this final shadow, Jung discovered something extraordinary happens. You don't just heal, you become whole. And wholeness changes everything. According to Carl Jung, individuation is the lifelong process of becoming whole, integrating all parts of yourself, light and dark, strong and vulnerable, empathic and discerning, giving and receiving. This integration is what makes you truly free. You're no longer just the sensitive child who absorbs everything like an emotional sponge, nor the hardened survivor who resists everything like emotional armor. You become the integrated being who can consciously choose what to absorb and what to deflect, when to open and when to close, how to give and how to receive. Jung said this wholeness is what makes you truly unmanipulable. Not because you're hard or closed, but because you're complete. You don't need external validation because you validate yourself. You don't need others to fill your emptiness because you've filled it yourself. You don't need to save others to feel valuable because you know your own worth. This integration creates what Jung called psychological sovereignty, the ability to be yourself without fear, without masks, without the compulsion to please or save everyone around you. And here's the most beautiful part of Jung's discovery about empath transformation: what you become isn't just healing for you. It's healing for the world. Carl Jung believed that when individuals transform themselves, they contribute to the healing of what he called the collective unconscious, the shared psychological space that connects all human beings. Your personal transformation doesn't just affect you, it ripples out and affects everyone you encounter. You become what Jung called a carrier of consciousness, someone who helps wake up humanity simply by being awake yourself. Your presence gives others permission to be authentic. Your boundaries show others how to protect their own energy. Your discernment teaches others to trust their intuition. Without trying to fix or save anyone, you become a living example of what's possible. People who meet you leave changed, not because you preached to them or tried to heal them, but because they witnessed authentic power in action. They saw someone who had been broken and rebuilt themselves stronger. Jung believed that the world is transformed not by those who remain unconscious of their own darkness, but by those who have faced their shadow and emerged integrated. You don't heal the world by being perfect, you heal it by being whole. But the final truth Jung discovered about empath transformation is something that will take your breath away. Here's what Carl Jung spent his entire life trying to help people understand: what empaths discover through their journey of survival and transformation is the most powerful truth of all: you are whole. You always were whole. Even when you felt completely shattered, even when the narcissist convinced you that you were broken, even when you couldn't recognize yourself in the mirror. The narcissist tried to convince you that you were nothing without them, that your sensitivity was weakness, that your caring was foolishness. But survival proved that was all projection. Transformation proved you were always everything you needed to be. Jung called this recognition, the return to the self, not the ego self that gets wounded and needs external validation, but the true self that remains unbreakable regardless of external circumstances. This self was never damaged by the narcissist because it exists beyond the reach of human manipulation. Jung found that this realization, this deep knowing of your own inherent wholeness, is what changes everything. And when you truly understand this, you'll never be the same. According to Carl Jung, you are no longer just an empath, no longer just a survivor, no longer just someone trying to heal from trauma. You have become something entirely new, what Jung might call the evolved human or the individuated soul. You are the wounded healer who can guide others without losing yourself in their problems. You are the shadow knower who can see truth through illusion and lies. You are the phoenix who demonstrates through your very existence that rebirth is possible no matter how complete the destruction seemed. You are the living integration of opposites, sensitive yet strong, open yet boundaried, loving yet discerning. You can hold space for others' pain without drowning in it. You can offer compassion without enabling dysfunction. You can love deeply without losing yourself in the process. Jung said you are the living proof that the human spirit cannot be destroyed, that consciousness can transform even the darkest experiences into wisdom, that even when poisoned, the soul can alchemize venom into medicine. And here's what Carl Jung knew that will change how you see your entire journey. Carl Jung discovered that empaths who survive narcissistic abuse don't just heal from trauma. They evolve into something humanity desperately needs, authentic beings who cannot be deceived, manipulated, or broken because they've already been through the fire and emerged refined. You are no longer someone who can be easily fooled by superficial charm or guilt into unhealthy sacrifice. You are someone who sees clearly, loves wisely, gives consciously, and receives gracefully. You understand the difference between helping and enabling, between compassion and codependence, between love and addiction. Jung said this evolution isn't just personal, it's evolutionary. You represent the next step in human consciousness. You are what humanity is growing toward, beings who can hold both light and shadow, who can love without losing themselves, who can be powerful without being destructive. Your scars are not signs of damage, they are marks of initiation into deeper levels of consciousness. Your sensitivity is not a flaw to be overcome. It's a superpower that's been refined by fire into discernment. Your survival is not just personal victory, it's a gift to everyone who will meet the transformed version of you. You are no longer someone who needs to be fixed, healed, or saved. You are someone who has been forged by experience into a force of nature, a being of such authentic power that your mere presence shifts the energy in any room you enter. Carl Jung would say that you are no longer just surviving what happened to you, you are thriving because of it. You are no longer just healing from the past, you are whole in the present. You are no longer just an empath trying to navigate a harsh world, you are an evolved human being capable of transforming that world simply by being authentically yourself within it. And that, according to the profound wisdom of Carl Jung, is not just who you've become, it's who you always were beneath the layers of conditioning, trauma, and false beliefs. The narcissist didn't break you, they stripped away everything that wasn't authentically you so that your true power could finally emerge. The question isn't whether you can survive what happened to you, you already have, and you've been transformed by it in ways that will continue unfolding for the rest of your life. The question Jung would ask is this: now that you know the magnificent being you've become through this alchemical process, how will you use this incredible power to contribute to the healing and evolution of our world? Your transformation from empath to evolved consciousness isn't just your personal healing journey, it's your gift to a world that desperately needs people who can see truth, love authentically, and live without masks. You are the medicine this world needs, and you were forged in the exact fires necessary to create that medicine. Welcome to your new identity. Welcome to your authentic power. Welcome to the person you were always meant to become. Remember, every tear you cried, every night you couldn't sleep, every moment you questioned your sanity, it was all sacred labor bringing forth the evolved being you are today. Your journey through hell wasn't punishment, it was preparation for the incredible contribution you're here to make. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it. And if you'd like to go a step further in supporting this work, you can now leave a super thanks below. It's a small way to say thank you, and it truly helps keep this channel going.